Hi guys, so today we're going to be doing my first interview on my new podcast, and we're going to be interviewing Rohan Murphy. Come on, let's go. Rohan, thank you so much for being the first guest on my new podcast. You are an inspiration to me and my family, and I'm so excited for the viewers to see why. I would like to start from early childhood when you lost your legs.
Well, Cam, first and foremost, thanks for having me. Much appreciated. Great to be on your podcast. And even more outstanding that I'm the first person on this podcast. So thank you so much. My story begins at birth. Unfortunately for myself, I was born with a very severe birth defect. Both my legs deformed. When I present at schools, kids always ask, well, Ro, what do you mean deformed? Well, when I was born, my kneecaps were on the opposite side. When I was born, my legs were backwards. That's how bad deformed my legs were.
So I heard you used prosthetic legs for a little bit. So why do you choose to go in a wheelchair instead of doing prosthetic legs? Is there a reason?
Well, I wore prosthetic legs when I was younger, your age, for the most part, because I wore them just cosmetically.
Yeah.
You know, I just wanted to fit in. I wanted to not have everyone really stare at me.
Yeah.
So I wore them cosmetically, even though I could never really functionally use them to walk with. So they were just cosmetic. And I just got to the point in my life and I said to myself, you know what? I am who I am. I don't have legs. If people are going to stare at me in public, then so be it. At least I'm happy. Because the one thing about wearing prosthetic legs that a lot of people don't really realize is that they're very heavy, they're very uncomfortable. They're like wearing shackles, and I was never really happy wearing them. So, like I said, I just want to be happy. I want to live my life.
Yeah. So one question I really wanted to ask, how was your school life?
My school life was great, actually. You know, because of my disability, I started going to school when I was in third grade. And I grew up in East Islip, Long Island, New York. And once I started going to school, that was when it really hit me that, you know, that I was different, that I couldn't do a lot of things that most kids your age could do, like play sports, play on the playground, stuff like that. But my classmates, the way I think about it, when I was younger, when I was your age, my friends, my classmates back in school, they're very inclusive rather than exclusive. You know, they really embraced me and my differences. So I'll always appreciate that.
So like, how was your family life growing up?
Family life was great. I grew up with my parents and my one brother. My one brother, his name is Kerry. He's older, 6 years older than I am. He played sports as well growing up. He wasn't as good of an athlete as me, obviously, you know, but he was a good athlete though. And growing up, I had a great home life. I really did.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. So I just wanted to ask, like, did anybody make fun of you at school or anything?
Now, going back to what I said about being really included a lot when I was younger your age. I was never made fun of, never bullied. And when I tell kids that at schools, you know, they all seem surprised, they all seem shocked. But like I said before, all my classmates and teammates growing up, they were very inclusive rather than exclusive.
Yeah. So obviously you liked wrestling a lot, right?
Yeah. Wrestling changed my life. The sport of wrestling changed my life. No doubt
So how
about
did you
it.
get into that?
I got into wrestling back when I was your age, actually, back in middle school. My 8th grade phys ed teacher, a guy by the name of Mr. Ron Croto, told me, Ro, you could wrestle. You can go out there, you could compete against kids with legs, and you could be a great wrestler. At first, I thought he was crazy, so I told him no. But finally, one day after school, he got a hold of me, literally. He brought me down to the practice room, and he started really showing me and demonstrating to me how I could wrestle. You know, how I could take people down, how I could pin people, even without legs, and I couldn't believe it. Finally, I found a sport that I can do. I found a sport that I could actually play. So the very next year, 9th grade, I went out for a high school wrestling team, made a wrestling team in 9th grade, and the rest is history.
That's good. So I heard you were in a Nike commercial too.
Yeah. So I filmed that Nike commercial back when I was in college. Nike got a hold of me somehow online. They sent me an email. They told me that they would love me to audition to be in a commercial. So they invited me down to a casting call at a local hotel. It was right down the road from Penn State University. I went to college at Penn State. And Nike interviewed me in a big conference room, and it was actually through a webcam, like on Zoom.
Yeah.
So it was just myself in that big room, and I was looking at the Nike representatives on TV through the Zoom cam, and they just interviewed me, asked me what I can do if I was chosen to be in this commercial. I kind of did my thing for them. The funny thing about it is, at first, I didn't think I got the commercial because they told me that they would get in touch with me by that Friday, and I think I interviewed like on a Tuesday or Wednesday. Yeah. So Friday came and went, and they never got back to me, so I figured I didn't get the commercial, but they actually called me the following Tuesday and said, Ro, you got the commercial. So it was probably the happiest day of my life.
How were you feeling at that moment?
It was great. It was awesome. I just couldn't believe it, that I was going to be my own Nike commercial. It was just an amazing opportunity, an amazing experience.
Yeah, a lot of athletes, they dream of being in a Nike commercial.
Exactly. Yeah. And really quick, just so you know, they flew me out to LA to film the commercial. First class, by the way. Oh, yeah. And they filmed it at a local high school gymnasium. Yeah. So it was just myself and a Nike crew in this big gymnasium. And the funny thing about the commercial is that the commercial itself is only about 30 seconds long, but it took us about 6 hours to film.
Did you get anything from the commercial? Or?
Oh yeah, they gave me a whole bunch of swag.
Wow.
T-shirts, hoodies, everything except for sneakers. Yeah.
So how was did you ever work or anything?
My profession right now is a motivational speaker. I speak at schools, but I've never done anything else for a living besides that. Yeah.
How do you feel on those stages when you're doing those tricks and all that?
I love being at schools. I love motivating kids. I love inspiring kids. I'm not really nervous anymore when I take the stage because I'm so used to it now. It's kind of like second nature to me, being in front of a large audience. But I love it, and it's my dream job. I tell people all the time that if you love what you do for a living, you never have to go to work.
How did you feel about doing it when you first started? Did you feel a little bit nervous or on the stages when
I was nervous big time. Yeah. I started speaking back when I was in college at Penn State. So when I went to college at Penn State, I was on the Penn State wrestling team, and we used to host these wrestling camps every summer. And the state of Pennsylvania is a huge wrestling state. Yeah. So at Penn State, we would get a couple thousand campers every summer. And there was one camp that I worked at where my head wrestling coach at Penn State, Troy Sunderland at the time, he said, Ro, how about you close out the camp with a motivational talk? Just give your life story, really motivate and inspire the kids. And I told Coach no, because I didn't want to be in front of a large audience, but he made me do it anyway. And there happened to be a presentation that I gave where there was a principal from a nearby high school at the presentation. He came up to me afterwards. He said, Ro, how about you come to my school, give that same talk? And that's kind of how I got started. And since then, it kind of just blossomed naturally into a great career.
Wait, so you went full college at Penn State, correct?
Oh, yeah.
What course did you take?
I graduated with a degree in kinesiology. What is kinesiology? It's a study of movement science, how the body creates locomotion. Every phys ed teacher has that degree.
How did you feel at Penn State? Did you feel good that you're in that school? Because I know that's a really good school for
it's a
sports.
Great school, definitely. It's a great school academically as well. Yeah. I tell kids all the time, if you want to go D1 for sports, you got to have a D1 grades go along with it, Yeah. But when I went to school at Penn State, my goal was just to go to a big-time university. I wanted to live on a big college campus independently by myself. And Penn State, that just happened to be the perfect scenario for me because it's a great school. It was close to New York, and they have one of the best wrestling programs in the nation.
Yeah. So I was watching one of your news channels, and you said people to write their dreams and futures in pencil, not pen. What do you mean by that?
That's my old quote. Outlining life in pencil, not pen. Mm-hmm. Outlining life in pencil, not pen. What I mean by that is that in life, if you make a mistake, don't be afraid to erase it. Don't be afraid to move on. Learn from your mistake and move on. Never be afraid to fail as well. Yeah. I meet so many kids your age at school, speaking at schools, and, they tell me things like they're afraid to go off a basketball team because they're afraid they might not make it. They're afraid to apply to their favorite college because they can't, or maybe they're afraid that they won't get accepted. And I tell them, in life, if you're going to succeed, you're going to have to fail at some point. You have to learn from your mistakes and move on. Yeah. So that's what outlining life in pencil, not pen, is all about.
When you speak to the kids, do you think they actually embrace it and actually do it like you said to do?
Oh, definitely. The best part about speaking at schools is the testimonials and the messages that I get from kids afterwards. I get a lot of great testimonials and messages on my social media from students at schools across the country, and that's what it's all about.
When the kids do this stuff, do you think they feel pretty much good after it? Because obviously, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think my story is just a uplifting, motivational, and inspirational story. I really and truly believe that anyone can find motivation and inspiration from my story. It's all about overcoming adversity.
When you speak to kids at school, have you ever found anybody else without legs?
Oh, definitely. There happened to be a young student at a school in Long Beach a couple of years ago where I spoke at, and he was a double amputee like myself. He didn't have legs. Yeah.
So as far as school-wise, how far do you go? Like, do you go anywhere in the country or?
My ultimate goal for speaking at schools is to actually speak at school in every state. Right now I've been to 42 states. The 8 states that I have remaining are Hawaii, Wyoming, South Dakota, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Georgia.
Well, obviously Hawaii is really far away.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I've been to Alaska twice though, so that's pretty
that's
cool.
good.
Yeah.
So when you go to these places, what do you do after you speak to the people? Do you go places and all?
Usually, my trips are pretty simple, Yeah. I'll fly in, I'll go to my hotel, maybe go to a local restaurant for dinner.
Yeah.
Wake up the next morning, go to the school, present, and then most of the time I just go right from the school back to the airport.
Yeah.
But every now and then if I travel somewhere where it's pretty cool or have some good sightseeing, I'll go around town a little bit. For instance, a couple years ago, I spoke at a school in Los Angeles. I spoke at an evening event at the school. So during the day, the principal picked me up and he drove me around LA. So he got to show me Beverly Hills, Rodeo Drive. Yeah, it was pretty cool. I'll never forget it.
Yeah, let's switch gears a little bit. So how do you when you were a kid, how can you compare that to when we were a kid, today?
I think the big difference nowadays from when I was a kid is obviously technology, social media. I remember being in middle school and high school, and AOL was a huge thing. You know what AOL is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember AOL being a huge thing now, and nothing compares now to social media, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. So I think the biggest difference now is just the social media and how much access that social media gives you to different people across the country and across the world as well.
When you were growing up, did you watch a lot of fighting stuff like WWE?
Growing up, I was a huge sports fan always. Always a huge sports fan. I watched a lot of wrestling, but I was more so a fan of college and NFL football, NBA basketball, and Major League Baseball.
What team did you like the best in wrestling?
In wrestling, college-wise, I actually always rooted for Penn State because they were so close to New York. Professionally, my favorite wrestler was probably a guy by the name of Sting. You ever heard of Sting? Yeah, probably not. You're young.
What was he in?
He was in WCW, then he's in WWE. Yeah.
So, did you ever any of sports, any other sports?
Yeah, huge football fan, huge basketball fan, baseball fan as well, and also a huge soccer fan. I think my love for sports kind of came naturally because my father named me after his favorite athletes. My first name, Rohan, comes from his favorite cricket player, Rohan Kanai. And my middle name, Mario, comes from his favorite soccer player named Mario Kempes. He was like the Messi before Messi from Argentina. You should look him up. He's a legend.
Have you ever met any of these people?
No, unfortunately not. Yeah. My dad actually grew up in Jamaica. So he said he actually never saw Rohan Kanai play cricket. He just heard him playing over the radio.
Have you ever been to any other countries or anything?
I've competed twice overseas in powerlifting, which is basically bench press. I've competed in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and Seoul, South Korea. They were both great experiences.
Okay. Yeah. How was Rio?
Rio was amazing, but because of the crime rate, they actually didn't allow us to really go out and really sightsee much. So we had to stay at our Olympic or I would say athlete village. Yeah. The one place we were allowed to go to where the police escorted us was to the Christ Redeemer. You know what that is? It's a huge statue.
The big statue on top of the mountain?
Yeah, in Rio, yeah. So that's one of the 7 wonders of the world. So seeing that in person was pretty cool.
When you talk to kids in schools, and do you ever see anything in their eyes of them being lucky to have what they have?
Definitely. I wouldn't say my story is very emotional, but every now and then I'll get actually maybe an adult, a teacher, who's maybe a little teary-eyed coming up to me afterwards, which is pretty amazing. But my story is just a story to make kids feel good and laugh, smile, and just be appreciative of their lives.
Did you ever lose any fights in wrestling?
Oh yeah, everyone loses in wrestling, definitely. Yeah, everyone loses. It's all about the learning from your experiences, learning from your mistakes, and trying to correct them in your next match and moving on.
Yeah, I know some kids in my school, they get always stressed about sports and everything. What do you have to say about that?
You can't really be stressed out about it. I think ultimately, if you're going to be successful in sports, doesn't matter if you're a middle school, high school, or Division I collegiate athlete, you have to get to a point where you're confident. You got to get to a point where whenever you step on the playing field, you feel and you know that you're going to win. You got to do what I call trust your training.
Mm-hmm.
You got to put that time in, you got to put that work in, and you got to know that from your hard work, dedication, and sacrifice, ultimately you're going to perform well in your sport, whatever it may be.
So like when you're, for example, like when you're in the mall looking for those pops, do people ever look at you and you feel uncomfortable?
No, I'm pretty used to the stares by now,
Yeah.
I've been getting them my whole life, and like I said, I just think it comes from people being curious. A lot of people just don't really know why or understand why someone wouldn't have their legs like I don't.
Yeah.
So I just think they're curious. But I will say this, though. Now that I'm older and I'm wiser, I'm starting to realize that most of the people staring at me in public are women in their mid-20s.
How do you feel about that?
Lucky guy. Pretty fortunate. Not going to lie about that.
So like when you're in Penn State, is it a big school? Is it a nice school?
Oh yeah, Penn State's a huge school. Like I said, growing up, my ultimate goal was to live on a huge college campus, get that full college atmosphere. And Penn State, I think their enrollment now is about 45,000 students. So it's a huge campus. And it was a great time. It really and truly was. I didn't have any trouble getting around campus at all, even though it's a big campus. For the most part, it's very accessible. I'll say this, though. Sometimes finding the wheelchair door or the accessible entrance is kind of a hassle. Most of the time it's around the back of the building, so it's kind of hidden. But for the most part, like I said, I can't complain. It was a great opportunity for me.
So did you get a scholarship from Penn State, or did you?
Yeah, I actually received multiple small scholarships. None for athletics, though. None for wrestling. They were all scholarships for being a minority, being African American, being disabled, being two minorities, So if you do your homework, you really could find a scholarship for everyone out there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you ever good at math and all that?
I was all right in math. My favorite subject was probably history. I was a big history guy growing up. I love to learn about, the history of the country for the most part. But for the most part, history, that was my favorite subject for sure.
Yeah, so when you give away those PS5s in the movie theaters, why do you do that?
I usually give away a PS5 once every holiday season, just to show my appreciation for all these schools bringing me in, allowing me to share my story. I tell people all the time, those school administrators, teachers, guidance counselors, they don't have to bring me in to speak at schools. They don't have to bring me in to speak at their schools. They bring me in because they feel that my story can really resonate with their students, and I'm very grateful for that. So I just try to do a little giveaway to give back, and I wish I could do more, because I get a lot of comments on that post every year. A lot of kids want to win that PS5, but unfortunately, there can only be one winner.
Well, yeah, what was everybody said? Did you get any pictures with people at my school?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I speak at Comac Middle School every year. So usually I speak to the sixth graders. Yeah. And then afterwards, if I'm able to, I take a couple selfies, a couple of photos with the students before you guys have to go back to class. But I love Comac Middle School. And last year when I spoke there, after school, I went to their wrestling practice. So I got to wrestle with a lot of the kids, a lot of the students. So that was pretty cool as well.
When you speak at the schools, do you always go to wrestling practices or?
Usually when I speak at a school, if they invite me down to the wrestling practice during the season, I'll attend. But for the most part, it's not always. But I do it a good amount of times, though. Yeah. I go to a lot of different schools year after year. I go to John Glenn's middle school wrestling practice every year, East Northport Middle School. I go to my old middle school, East Islip, almost every year. Brentwood has 4 different middle schools. I usually go to some of their middle school practices during the year as well. Yeah, so I try to get around as much as possible.
Yeah. Do you like my hat?
I love it. Team Rohan. I love it. I actually got to get some of those for my visits at schools. Give them out to students or something.
Yeah, you need to.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think they were that expensive either.
All right. Good to know. For real.
I'm focusing on my podcast on faith, family, and country, which I believe are the foundations to so many successful people. Do these 3 factor into your success?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for my family, growing up with my parents and my brother. And one of the things I come to know is that, when I was younger, I thought growing up in a 2-parent household was pretty common. But unfortunately nowadays that's not the case. So I just feel very lucky, very fortunate to be able to grow up in that two-parent household. My dad, my mom always there for me, and as well as my brother, and just know that it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Do you think we all talk about the American dream enough?
Definitely, but I just think that, the American dream is different from for everyone else. The American dream is different for everyone else. It depends what you want out of life.
Do you think you're living it?
Definitely. I tell people all the time that my biggest accomplishment in life is that I'm happy. I achieved happiness. And I know you're young, but trust me, out there in the real world, there are a lot of people my age that aren't very happy with their lives. And just about all those people have their legs. So I think that can't be taken for granted, and I'm very happy and fortunate that I've achieved happiness in life.
Yeah, and I think when you speak to those people, they're very appreciative of their life.
Yeah, thank you. That's the goal. Yeah.
Okay, so I have one funny question to ask you before we go. Do you believe in UFO and aliens?
Do I believe in UFO and aliens? We live in part of a huge universe, all right? So I doubt that we're the only living species out there, Maybe those aliens, they're in a whole different section of the universe, Maybe someday we'll come across them, but we're definitely not alone. No way. We're not alone.
I agree with that. Okay. Glad to have you today.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it. Anytime.
Okay. And we liked you as my first guest of the podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate you, man. Good to see you.
You too.
No doubt.
Hi, that was a very good interview with Rohan Murphy. Please watch the full video. Next episode coming soon. Big hint. See you guys next time.